Federica Mogherini will debrief you about the Foreign Affairs Council of today. Please.
Yes, thank you. I guess that you have had a chance already of listening to some of the foreign ministers, if not all. You know that the Foreign Affairs Council today had in agenda different points on urgencies and crises in our region. You also know that the crisis in Ukraine as such was not an official point of our agenda, as we had our extraordinary Foreign Affairs Council meeting 10 days ago, where we had decided already to increase the level of pressure for the political efforts and to increase the political efforts of the European Union for getting to an implementation of the Minsk agreements. And we have used these 10 days, as you know, to follow up our decisions and to deliver on these decisions, in particular on the additional names to the list. In the last days, in these last 10 days, as you know, there have been new political initiatives in line with what we had decided at the Foreign Affairs Council 10 days ago. In these days, we have discussed and coordinated on these initiatives with four actors of the Normandy format, with Germany, with France, with Ukraine, with President Poroshenko directly several times in these days, and with Russia itself. You know, I have had a bilateral meeting with Lavrov in Munich in these days. And I've already had the chance of expressing something that unites us and has united us all in these months and still in these days, that we all believe that the solution to the crisis in Ukraine can only be a political one. So we endorse today, with the foreign ministers, all efforts done in these hours in view of a new meeting on Wednesday to reach finally an implementation at full of the Minsk agreements. Today, as I said, the point was not formally on the agenda, but we are politicians. We deal with what is on the political agenda, being flexible enough to adapt our discussions to what is needed at the moment. And we discussed and adopted the list of additional names of 19 individuals and 9 entities that would be subject to asset freeze and visa ban, as it was decided to be followed up in our last meeting 10 days ago. In order to give space for our diplomatic efforts in these hours to be developed with the maximum of chances for success, we decided unanimously, united, to put the entry into force of the measures on hold until Monday 16th, as we believe it is our duty to give this attempt that we are doing a chance. Then we will have, obviously, the opportunity to assess the developments, first of all on the ground, but also the developments of this initiative on Thursday with the heads of state and governments. We have been consistent in our decisions, timely and united, and we count on continuing to do so for the future. We discussed and decided also on some other issues that are of major concern for our region, starting from Libya, where we have decided, you probably read already the conclusions, we have decided to give all our not only political but also concrete support to the small but encouraging steps of dialogue, internal dialogue, that the UN is leading. Good news is that apparently this dialogue has some chances of involving all sides. So we know that the situation is and is going to stay fragile, but the European Union has some instruments, together with the member states, to encourage and to protect this dialogue in its further steps, to try and prevent the situation to get out of control completely in Libya. We have to give strength to the outcome of these fragile talks with all means, and this means in particular to look at the ways in which we can support the confidence-building measures that have been discussed and might be implemented in the future. We have also discussed and approved conclusions on Yemen. That is a situation that worries us a lot and that requires from us today, in these hours, where the UN is resuming inclusive talks, a strong political message of attention to say that the framework provided by the GCC initiative has to remain a point of reference. And we discussed and approved a series of measures and of conclusions also on other crisis areas, in particular related to Africa, that we will discuss also further on in March. And we adopted conclusions that were following up our discussion in January on counterterrorism, how the European Union external action can implement the internal measures that were discussed and decided by interior ministers. Just and Home Affairs Foreign Ministerial was held in Riga at the end of January. So we decided a set of concrete actions and initiatives to be taken immediately by the European Union and together with member states, in particular to strengthen and increase the cooperation activities with some key countries in the Middle East, in the Arab world, in North Africa, in Sahel, and in the Gulf, to work on our diplomatic activities more to try to solve the open crisis starting from the Middle East conflict, Palestine, that, as you know, was the center of our work yesterday with the Quartet principles, and to work in particular on prevention and on information exchange with key countries like Turkey or Saudi Arabia in our efforts to prevent and contrast terrorism from the external action side. It is an ambitious plan. You might want to look at the conclusions in detail to look at all the measures that will constitute a substantial input into the discussion that the heads of state and government will have on this later in the week on Thursday. Obviously, it's an ambitious plan that will need to be implemented, I hope, very coherently and quickly. And on this, we will obviously need the cooperation not only of all the European Union institutions, but also of member states that are very much aware of the fact that this is and has to stay a priority of our not only internal and security action, but also our diplomatic and foreign policy. I would stop here and take a couple of questions. I'm sorry to say that malheureusement, our time is not too much tonight because I have another news to give. Probably you have read that already. Tonight we are restarting the Serbia-Kosovo dialogue. So I will have to leave to meet the two prime ministers and to make them meet, I guess for the first time. That is going to be something very important, an exercise that the European Union is facilitating, has been facilitating rather successfully in these years, and that I intend to continue to facilitate in the future. So I hope that tonight it will be on a positive note that we can conclude this day of activities with an important meeting that is going to take place in less than half an hour.
Lawrence, please.
Hi, Representative Lawrence Norman, The Wall Street Journal. We all understand that the negotiations are ongoing and they're very sensitive. But can you give us any reassurance, any explanation of how we can ensure that a ceasefire doesn't lead to a permanent frozen conflict in Ukraine? And if we only get a ceasefire, would that be condition enough to start looking at easing sanctions pressure on Russia?
On one side, I think it would be very difficult to find an agreement on a ceasefire if we don't also at the same time find an agreement on a set of other issues. That was exactly the meaning of the Minsk agreement in September, that in fact listed a series of issues, and we always refer, and I personally always refer, to the full implementation of all the Minsk agreement points, because I think that we don't only have to reach a ceasefire urgently, and this is for obvious humanitarian reasons, very urgent, and I have to say more and more urgent every day, because the situation on the ground is getting even worse. But we have to make the ceasefire sustainable in time and lead to a solution to the conflict. Not only a solution to the conflict, but a solution that leads to a sustainable situation for Ukraine. And when we refer to Ukrainian sovereignty and territorial integrity, we mean exactly that. We need a sustainable solution, and we also need an urgent ceasefire. And the two things, I think, go hand in hand. And the second question was, is the ceasefire enough to start easing or looking at easing the... you know what, my main problem, and I think the problem of all the 28 ministers around the table today, is not only looking at our measures. Our point, our priority, is to have the situation on the ground improving. That is the starting point. The situation on the ground has to improve. The ceasefire has to be not only agreed, but put in place and implemented. And all the other set of measures that the parts will negotiate, are negotiating in these times. And when I refer to Ukrainian sovereignty, I also mean that it's in the hands of the Ukrainian authorities, legitimate authorities, to decide to what extent the negotiations can go in all the points that were listed in the Minsk agreement. But what we are discussing at the moment, what they are discussing at the moment in these very same hours, is measures to implement the Minsk agreement that was signed. I hope that answers your question. Then we'll talk about all the rest. But priority number one now is to make things improving on the ground.
Noureddine? No.
Madame Mogherini, Noureddine Fridi de la télévision l'Arabien. J'ai une question sur le Yémen, si vous voulez bien. Dans le communiqué, l'Union européenne appelle à la libération du président Hadi, son Premier ministre et son cabinet. Est-ce que cela veut dire que l'Union européenne accepte ou accepterait le fait accompli de certains groupes armés qui renversent un président élu, et puis surtout que certains États membres et des diplomates des Nations Unies accusent un groupuscule qui s'appelle Ansarallah, les groupes des Houthis, et en plus de l'ex-président Ali Abdallah Salah d'être derrière tous ces événements, ce scénario très violent. Est-ce que, à un certain stage, vous allez prendre des sanctions contre les responsables qui ne travailleraient pas ou ne coopéreraient pas avec l'envoyé des Nations Unies? Merci.
On n'a pas discuté de ça aujourd'hui. Aujourd'hui, le message qu'on va lancer sur la situation en Yémen est de essayer de faire de façon que les négociations que les Nations Unies ont relancées aujourd'hui aboutissent à une solution positive. Ce qu'on a approuvé dans la déclaration est exactement ce qu'il y a écrit. C'est-à-dire aujourd'hui, il y a une nouvelle qui peut être encourageant si ça se développe dans la façon indiquée dans les conclusions. Et c'est ça qu'on dit maintenant, aujourd'hui, sur cette crise. Après, on va voir. Mais maintenant, c'est important que le dialogue que les Nations Unies ont recommencé aujourd'hui arrive à des résultats positifs. Merci.
Merci.
One last
maybe Adrian.
Adrian Croft from Reuters for High Representative. Can you confirm that it was the Ukrainians who asked for a delay in the implementation of the sanctions today, please, to help the Minsk process?
We discussed with President Poroshenko in Munich, where you also were, not only the day before yesterday, when we had a long bilateral meeting, but also yesterday evening again, and this morning with some calls, exactly to understand what kind of space is needed to allow the negotiations to have the maximum chances of success. Obviously, I have discussed personally this issue about creating the space for the negotiations to get to a positive end, mainly with ministers today, even before the beginning of the Foreign Affairs Council. And the decision that we have taken is purely a European Foreign Affairs Council decision. It's our responsibility, it's our choice, that obviously we have discussed with the four that are negotiating concretely in these hours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. But
you have read a letter from Poroshenko in the consulate.
No. No, I have not received any letter from Poroshenko. I've talked in these days very often with them. We were together in Munich, so we discussed directly yesterday and the day before yesterday, and I had President Poroshenko on the phone, obviously, yesterday. This morning again, we discussed with Foreign Minister Klimkin. It's discussion, but no, I didn't receive a letter from President Poroshenko. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.